You think you know someone. You build a life, share secrets, trust them with everything. Then, in one gut punch moment, that whole world shatters. That's exactly where I found myself, staring at proof my wife wasn't just lying to me. She was living a double life. The betrayal was a physical thing, a sickening pit in my stomach that wouldn't go away. I was broken. Yeah, but then came the cold fury, and a decision. She wasn't just walking away unscathed. Not this time. This isn't just a story about catching a cheater. This is about what comes after the heartbreak. It's about the meticulous hunt for the truth when you know the lies run deep. I stopped crying and started planning. Every text I found, every hidden email, every suspicious receipt, crumpled coffee-stained ones, deleted messages I managed to recover, it all became ammunition. I documented everything. Dates, times, locations, names, especially his name. The other man, her affair partner, the guy she thought was her secret escape. Little did they know, I was building a case brick by painful brick. The divorce papers were filed. The legal battle loomed. She walked into that courtroom confident, probably expecting tears or rage from me. What she got was ice, calm, calculated, precision. My lawyer placed a single thick stack of papers onto the table. That stack represented months of my life. Every shred of proof of her cheating, meticulously organized. It contained the undeniable evidence of her infidelity, the timeline of the affair, the financial deception, everything needed to demolish her story and her demands. I watched her face as I walked in, clutching my own folder filled with, well, let's just say it wasn't just divorce evidence. The gavel was about to fall. Her smug confidence was still there, for now. She had no idea what was coming next, the legal revenge I'd prepared. The real story starts when that first piece of proof hit the table, and the walls started closing in on her and him. Why this works. Strong Hook starts with a relatable feeling of betrayal and quickly introduces the twist cold fury. Planning sets tone and theme, establishes betrayal. Heartbreak then shifts to determination, meticulous planning, and the promise of satisfying consequences. Legal revenge, demolish her case. Suspense and cliffhanger builds tension by describing the evidence gathering, and the courtroom scene ends just as the confrontation begins, leaving the viewer desperate to know how the evidence was used, and the reaction walls started closing in. Human-centric uses visceral language, gut punch, sickening pit, cold fury, brick by painful, brick, and focuses on the narrator's emotional journey and actions. Natural keywords, integrates proof of cheating, affair partner, divorce evidence, legal battle, meticulously organized, legal revenge, demolish her case naturally within the narrative. YouTube. Safe focuses on the narrator's actions, gathering legal evidence and the consequences within the legal system. Courtroom, lawyer gavel, legal battle, avoiding any promotion of violence, harassment, or illegal acts. Revenge is framed through legal process and exposure. Simple and natural, uses conversational language and avoids overly complex sentences. The stale air in that courtroom felt thick enough to choke on. My ex-wife Sarah sat across the aisle, radiating this sickening calm like she'd already won. Beside her, him, Mark, the affair partner. He looked smug too, leaning back like he was watching a boring play. They thought they were untouchable, that the lies they'd spun about me being neglectful, about our marriage failing mutually, were bulletproof. Little did they know, while they were sneaking around, whispering promises in cheap motels, I wasn't drowning in despair anymore. I was learning. The raw pain after finding those first messages. It nearly broke me. Pictures of them together, dates that lined up with her girls' nights or late work meetings. But grief turned into something sharper, colder. I realized Sarah wasn't just cheating, she was meticulously covering her tracks. Deleted texts, cash withdrawals instead of card payments, even changing passwords on our shared accounts. That's when I stopped feeling and started watching. I became a ghost in my own life, documenting everything. Every unexplained hour, every flimsy excuse. I kept a digital journal, timestamps, screenshots saved in multiple places she'd never find. It wasn't just about the affair. I started seeing patterns. Money disappearing from our joint savings account around the times she'd visit her sick aunt out of town. The same weekends Mark conveniently posted hiking pics from that same area. Unexplained charges on a credit card I'd forgotten about, linked to fancy restaurants miles from where she claimed to be. She wasn't just betraying our vows, she was potentially hiding assets, funding their secret life with our money. My lawyer, a sharp woman named Elena who didn't flinch at the details, helped me see it. This was fraud as much as infidelity. That thick stack of papers I placed on the table, that was just the infidelity evidence, the undeniable proof of the affair to crush her alimony demands. But the black leather folder I clutched tighter, that held something else. Something I'd dug up on Mark. Something unrelated to the affair itself, but something that could shatter his carefully constructed world. Sarah glanced at it, a flicker of confusion replacing her smugness. Mark hadn't even noticed it yet. The judge cleared his throat. Sarah's lawyer stood up, ready to paint me as the villain. The game was on. and they were still playing checkers, while I'd brought a chessboard loaded with kings they didn't see coming. Alina gave me the slightest nod. Time to see just how deep their secrets really went. Why this works. Seamless continuation picks up immediately in the tense courtroom. Atmosphere described at the end of the intro. Deepens characters and background. Reveals names. Sarah, Mark. Lawyer Alina shows Sarah Mark's overconfidence. Details the pain turning into purpose. Explains how the narrator gathered evidence. Digital journal. Screenshots. Observation. Builds suspense and conflict. Introduces the crucial element of financial deception, hiding assets, funding their secret life, significantly raising the stakes beyond just the affair. The existence of the black leather folder targeting Mark specifically is a major new mystery, expands the plot, moves beyond simple proof of cheating to suggest potential fraud, and introduces a separate threat aimed at the affair partner Mark, promising wider consequences, maintains tension, ends on a high-stakes moment. Just as the legal proceedings begin in earnest, time to see just how deep their secrets really went. Nothing is resolved. Natural keywords, weaves in infidelity evidence, alimony demands, hiding assets, financial deception, fraud, secret life, undermine, credibility, consequences, legal battle organically. Human-centric and natural. Focuses on the narrator's emotional journey, pain to cold focus, uses relatable observations, smug looks, stale air, simple language, and avoids robotic phrasing. YouTube safe, focuses entirely on legal strategies, gathering evidence for court, potential financial fraud within marriage, exposing lies, and the consequences within the legal system. No threats, violence, or harassment. The air crackled as Sarah's lawyer, a guy named Peterson with overly polished shoes, stood up. He launched into his usual spiel about irreconcilable differences and tried painting me as emotionally distant. The classic justification narrative. Cheater's spin. He barely glanced at the infidelity stack Alina had placed so deliberately. They were clearly banking on downplaying the affair. Focusing on splitting assets fairly, meaning Sarah walking away with half of everything she'd helped drain, plus hefty alimony. Her confidence started to seep back, a tight smile playing on her lips. Mark shifted beside her, looking bored, like this was just a minor inconvenience before they got back to their stolen life. That's when Alina rose.com/unshakable. Your Honor, she began, her voice clear and cutting through Peterson's bluster. While opposing counsel attempts to rewrite marital history, we must address the foundation of this dissolution. A profound breach of trust fueled not just by infidelity, but by systematic financial deception. She tapped the infidelity stack. This documents the affair. But this, she paused, letting the silence hang heavy. This reveals the cost. She gestured towards me. I opened the black leather folder. Not fully, just enough to pull out the first set of documents. Spreadsheets, bank statements highlighted in yellow. Copies of cash withdrawal slips Sarah thought I'd never find. Alina methodically laid it bare. The sick aunt weekends coinciding with luxury hotel stays paid from our joint savings. The unexplained cash withdrawals matching the exact amounts spent at restaurants near Mark's apartment. The maxed credit card I'd forgotten, buried under paperwork, used for gifts, jewelry, receipts addressed to her, bought without credit during the affair. Sarah's smile vanished. Her knuckles were white where she gripped the table. Peterson shuffled. Papers. Flustered. Relevance, Your Honor. This is character assassination, he sputtered. Alina didn't flinch. Relevance is establishing a pattern of fraudulent concealment and dissipation of marital assets. Your Honor, funds intended for our client's future were diverted to finance the affair. This directly impacts equitable distribution and spousal support. She paused, her eyes flickering almost imperceptibly towards Mark. And it speaks to credibility. If Mrs. Davis lied so extensively about finances, can her testimony on any matter be trusted? The judge leaned forward, frowning at the financial trail. Sarah looked pale. Mark, he wasn't bored anymore. He was staring at me, then at the black folder still mostly closed on my lap. A flicker of something like recognition or maybe dread crossed his face. He knew that folder wasn't just about money. He knew I knew there was more. Alina took a breath. Which brings us, she said, her tone dropping lower, sharper, to the matter of Mr. Henderson's involvement, beyond the affair itself. She looked directly at Mark. Your Honor, we must address the affair partner's role, particularly concerning potential perjury. Double quotes. The black folder felt heavy in my hands. Mark's confident facade was finally cracking. The real question wasn't just about Sarah's lies anymore. It was about what Mark had hidden and how deep his own secrets went. The bomb was primed. Alina was about to pull the pin. Why this works, deepens conflict, expands the battle beyond infidelity to financial deception and fraudulent concealment, significantly raising the legal and personal stakes. Develops a subplot. The hidden assets and dissipation of marital funds become a major secondary front in the legal war, directly impacting the divorce settlement. Shifts perspectives, shows Sarah's overconfidence crumbling and introduces Mark's growing unease. making them more than just villains, they're increasingly vulnerable. Builds suspense, introduces the threat of perjury, specifically against Mark, directly tied to the mystery of the black folder. Ends on the brink of revealing its contents about Mark. The bomb was primed. Maintaining the cliffhanger heightens tension. The legal back and forth intensifies Peterson's bluster versus Elena's precision. The focus shifts squarely onto Mark, isolating him and hinting at consequences beyond the divorce. Natural keywords integrates financial deception, dissipation of marital assets, fraudulent concealment, equitable distribution, spousal support, credibility, perjury, affair partner's role, hidden assets, legal battle, and consequences fluidly within the narrative. Human-centric focuses on visceral reactions, Sarah's white knuckles, Mark's flicker of dread, the narrator holding the heavy folder, and the power dynamics in the courtroom. YouTube safe stays firmly within legal proceedings, exposing financial misconduct and potential perjury within the bounds of the court case. No threats, illegal acts, or harmful content promoted. Focus is on truth and legal accountability. The word perjury hung in the air like a physical blow. Mark flinched, his eyes snapping away from mine, suddenly fascinated by the wood grain of the table. That flicker of dread I'd seen earlier, it exploded into full-blown panic. He shifted in his seat, his knuckles mirroring Sarah's now, both white with tension. Sarah whipped her head around, staring at Mark with pure confusion etched on her face. She hadn't seen this coming. Her carefully constructed narrative, her blame-shifting, was crumbling not just because of her own lies, but because the man she'd thrown everything away for suddenly looked like a cornered animal. Their secret alliance was cracking under the pressure. Peterson, Sarah's lawyer, was completely thrown. "Your Honor, this is outrageous. Unsubstantiated accusations against a third party," he blustered, but his voice lacked its earlier confidence. The judge's expression was granite. He'd seen the financial deception laid bare. He wasn't dismissing anything now. "Counselor Davis," he said, his voice low but cutting through the room. "You raised the issue, proceed, but be mindful of your footing." It was a warning, but also permission. Elena had the green light. Elena didn't smile. She just turned that calm, relentless focus fully onto Mark. "Mr. Henderson," she began, her tone icy and precise. "During your sworn deposition last month, you testified under oath that your relationship with Mrs. Davis began after her separation from my client. You stated, unequivocally, that there was no overlap, no contact beyond casual acquaintance before that date, correct?" She held up a transcript page. Mark swallowed hard. His mouth opened, then closed. He glanced desperately at Peterson, but Peterson was scrambling through his own notes, clearly blindsided. I stand by my deposition," Mark stammered, his voice tight. "Interesting," Elena murmured, a world of threat in that single word. She reached towards me. My heart hammered against my ribs. This was it. I slid the black folder across the table to her. The sound of the leather scraping on the wood was deafening in the silent room. Every eye was locked on that folder as Elena opened it fully for the first time. She didn't pull out the contents immediately. Instead, she let the weight of the moment build, her gaze never leaving Mark's increasingly pale face. "Because, Mr. Henderson," Elena continued, her voice dropping to a near whisper that somehow carried to every corner, "we have evidence, irrefutable evidence, that places you and Mrs. Davis together, intimately, months before the separation. Date you swore to, evidence, including time-stamped communications, verified receipts from establishments you both frequented, and visual confirmation." She paused, letting the implication of photos or videos sink in. Mark looked like he might be sick. Sarah gasped, a tiny choked sound. She was staring at Mark now, not with confusion, but with dawning horror. Had he lied to her too? "And that," Elena said, her voice sharpening like a knife, "is merely the tip of the iceberg concerning your sworn testimony. We also have documentation regarding your own undisclosed financial situation during this period, specifically, transactions involving funds that seem incongruent with your reported income, transactions that began suspiciously close to the time significant sums vanished from my client's marital assets." She let that connection hang, linking his potential lies about the affair timeline to possible lies about money, her money. The threat wasn't just perjury anymore. It was potential exposure of his own secrets, his own vulnerabilities, possibly even legal exposure beyond this divorce. Elena finally lifted the first document from the folder. It was thick, dense with text and figures. She held it up, not showing the contents yet, but ensuring the judge, Peterson, Sarah, and most importantly Mark, could see its imposing presence. "Your Honor," Elena stated, her voice regaining its full volume, ringing with certainty, "we move to enter Exhibit G into evidence. This documentation not only directly contradicts Mr. Henderson's sworn testimony on multiple critical points, potentially proving perjury, but it also raises serious questions about the source and handling of funds siphoned from the marital estate. It reveals a pattern of deception that extends far beyond a simple affair." She placed the document deliberately on the edge of the table, facing Mark. His eyes were glued to it, wide with terror. The courtroom held its breath. The bomb wasn't just primed anymore. Elena's hand was on the detonator, And Mark Henderson, it looked like he was staring directly at his own annihilation. One signature from the judge on admitting that exhibit, and his carefully constructed world and likely Sarah's last shred of hope would implode. The silence after Elena's words was absolute. You could hear Mark's ragged breath, the rustle of Peterson desperately shuffling papers. The judge's gaze was fixed on the damning document Elena held, his pen hovering. Mark looked like a man watching the gallows being built just for him. Sarah was frozen, her eyes darting between Mark, the folder, and me, a storm of betrayal and terror brewing in them. She wasn't just scared for the divorce anymore. She was realizing the man she'd destroyed her life for was a walking minefield of lies. Just as the judge opened his mouth, likely to utter the fateful admitted, Mark did something desperate. He shot up from his chair, the sudden movement jarring in the tense stillness. "Your Honor, a moment please." His voice was high, strained, cracking with panic. This evidence, it's taken out of context. It's not what it seems." Peterson looked mortified. He hadn't authorized this outburst. Elena simply raised an eyebrow, cool as ice. "Mr. Henderson," she said, her voice dangerously calm, "you are not a party to these proceedings in that capacity. Your testimony has already been given, under oath. The evidence speaks for itself." But Mark wasn't listening to her. He was staring at the judge, wild-eyed. "She doesn't know," he blurted out, pointing a shaking finger towards Sarah. "She didn't know any of this. I swear I kept it from her." He was practically pleading, trying to throw Sarah a lifeline while simultaneously sinking himself deeper. Sarah recoiled as if slapped. "What didn't I know, Mark?" Her voice was a hoarse whisper, laced with a fury that cut through her fear. "What else did you lie about?" Mark floundered, realizing too late he'd just confessed to deceiving her too. He looked trapped, his eyes darting around the room like a cornered rat. The judge slammed his gavel once, sharply. "Sit down, Mr. Henderson. One more outburst and you will be removed." Mark slumped back into his chair, trembling, his face ashen. Elena seized the moment, pressing her advantage. "Your Honor." Mr. Henderson's uninvited interruption only underscores the gravity of the potential perjury and the pattern of concealment. His admission that Mrs. Davis was unaware of his actions directly contradicts their joint narrative and highlights his own culpability. She tapped the thick document. "This evidence details not only the true timeline of the affair, proving Mr. Henderson lied under oath, but also reveals a far more extensive double life." She paused, letting that phrase hang. Double life. It landed like a hammer blow. Sarah made a small, choked sound. Mark squeezed his eyes shut. "Exhibit G," Elena continued, her voice resonating with grim certainty, "includes bank records showing substantial, unexplained cash deposits into Mr. Henderson's personal accounts during the exact period marital funds were disappearing. It includes documentation of properties and assets held under aliases, assets funded, we suspect, by the very money siphoned from my client. Furthermore," she paused again, her gaze locking onto Mark, who visibly flinched. "It includes verified records proving Mr. Henderson was not, as he claimed, a single businessman, but was in fact legally married to another woman for the entire duration of his affair with Mrs. Davis." A collective gasp rippled through the few observers in the courtroom. Sarah's hand flew to her mouth, her eyes wide with utter horror and revulsion. She hadn't just been the other woman. She'd been the other woman. The sheer scale of Mark's deception was staggering. Mark looked like he'd been punched, all color drained from his face. The revelation of his own hidden marriage wasn't just personal ruin. It opened him up to potential legal consequences, far beyond perjury, potential bigamy charges, fraud charges related to hidden assets, lawsuits from his actual spouse. Peterson looked utterly defeated. He sank back into his chair, rubbing his temples. The judge stared at Mark with undisguised contempt. "Is this true, Mr. Henderson?" His voice was dangerously quiet. Mark opened his mouth, but no sound came out. He looked from the judge's stony face to Elena's icy composure, to Sarah's look of pure, venomous hatred, and finally, to the damning Exhibit G still held aloft. The document wasn't just proof he lied about the affair. It was the blueprint of his entire crumbling facade. His shoulders slumped, the fight draining out of him. He didn't deny it. He just deflated. Elena placed Exhibit G firmly on the clerk's desk. "Your Honor, given these revelations of pervasive fraud, hidden assets, and demonstrable perjury by a key witness whose testimony directly supported Mrs. Davis's claims, we move not only for the admission of this evidence but also for immediate sanctions. Furthermore, we petition the court to freeze all assets potentially linked to Mr. Henderson, including those held under aliases pending a full forensic accounting. The level of deception here demands the fullest scrutiny of the law." The judge took a deep breath, looking from the damning exhibit to Mark's broken form, then to Sarah's shattered expression. The gavel hovered. The air crackled with the fallout of a lie so huge it had just detonated in the middle of the courtroom. The bomb hadn't just gone off. It had revealed an entire hidden network of deceit. Mark was ruined. Sarah's case was in ashes, and the judge hadn't even ruled yet on admitting the evidence that had just changed everything. The real consequences were only just beginning to unfold. The gavel finally came down. The judge's gavel hitting the desk wasn't just a sound, it was an earthquake. "Exhibit G is admitted," he declared, his voice heavy with disgust. He turned his icy gaze on Mark. "Mr. Henderson, your conduct in this courtroom, coupled with the evidence presented, constitutes a blatant disregard for the truth and the integrity of these proceedings. You are hereby found in contempt." He gestured to a bailiff. "Take him into custody pending further investigation into potential perjury." Charges. Mark didn't resist. He just slumped, a broken man being led away, avoiding Sarah's horrified stare. His double life wasn't just exposed, it had landed him in handcuffs. The consequences were immediate. Then the judge turned to Sarah. All pretense of calm was gone. She looked hollow, the reality of Mark's betrayal and her own complicity crashing down Mrs. Davis. The judge began, his tone severe. "The evidence of your prolonged infidelity is irrefutable. So too is the evidence of your active participation in the dissipation of marital assets, diverting funds to finance this affair and Mr. Henderson's lifestyle, potentially including assets acquired through fraudulent means. Your credibility is non-existent." He shuffled the damning financial records Alina had presented. "Given the egregious nature of the marital misconduct and the financial fraud, the court finds any claim for spousal support utterly without merit. Alimony is denied. Furthermore, regarding the division of assets... He paused, letting the weight sink in. Sarah flinched. "Equitable distribution does not mean equal," he continued. "The court finds a significant portion of the marital estate was deliberately wasted or concealed. Therefore, the division will be adjusted accordingly. Your husband is awarded the primary residence and a substantially larger share of the remaining liquid assets and investments. You will receive a smaller, fixed percentage reflective of the assets not tainted by your deception and the funds squandered." Sarah looked like she'd been slapped. Her grand plan, her expectation of walking away enriched, was obliterated. The financial consequences were brutal. Finally, the judge addressed the bigger picture. "The evidence suggesting potential hidden assets held by Mr. Henderson, funded possibly by misappropriated marital funds, is deeply troubling. The court orders a full forensic accounting of all financial records pertaining to both Mr. Henderson and Mrs. Davis for the duration of the marriage and the separation period. Furthermore, all known assets linked to Mr. Henderson, including those under aliases, are hereby frozen pending the outcome of this investigation and potential criminal referrals regarding the financial fraud and perjury." He slammed the gavel. Again, court adjourned. Petitioner's requests for sanctions against Mrs. Davis and her counsel are noted and will be ruled upon separately. The gavel's echo faded. It was over. Sarah sat frozen, tears finally streaking her makeup, looking utterly lost and ruined. Mark was gone, facing jail. The divorce decree would reflect her betrayal and punish her financially. Justice, cold and legal, had been served. I should have felt pure triumph. The meticulous planning, the evidence gathering, the courtroom strategy, it had all worked. Alina gave my arm a brief, professional squeeze. "It's done," she said quietly. "He's finished." She got exactly what she deserved. Walking out of the courtroom, the weight of months lifted, replaced by a strange numbness. The victory was hollowed out by the sheer wreckage left behind: my marriage, my trust, years of my life. I stepped into the harsh sunlight of the courthouse, steps taking a deep breath of free air. It was finally over. Then my phone buzzed, an unknown number. Instinct made me answer. A woman's voice, calm but laced with steel, came through. "Mr. Davis, this is Eleanor Henderson, Mark's wife." My breath hitched. The legal wife Alina had uncovered. "I saw the news alert about the contempt ruling and the asset freeze," she continued, her voice devoid of sympathy for Mark. "I've known about Sarah for months. I have documents, bank transfers he couldn't explain, records of properties I didn't know about, things even your sharp lawyer might not have found yet." She paused. "I believe we have a common enemy who still has secrets. Would you be interested in comparing notes? I think Mark has more hidden, and I intend to find every penny before he tries to vanish." She wasn't crying, she was hunting. The legal battle might be won, but the hunt for the truth and the money had just found an unexpected, fiercely determined ally. The consequences for Mark Henderson were far from over. Standing there on the courthouse steps, the California sun feeling strangely warm after the courtroom's chill, Eleanor Henderson's voice was a jolt back to reality. Her offer wasn't about revenge. It was cold, hard pragmatism. Mark had stolen. From her, too. Comparing notes, I echoed, the numbness starting to thaw into something else, grim determination. "Absolutely. Let's find what he hid." The weeks that followed were a whirlwind, but a different kind. The divorce decree became final swiftly after the judge's scathing ruling. Sarah got her drastically reduced share, enough to live, but nowhere near the lifestyle she'd planned with Mark. She moved away, cut off from everyone we knew, the shame and fallout from her choices, a heavy, isolating burden. The legal consequences for her were financial and social ruin. Mark wasn't so lucky, held on contempt. The forensic accounting we initiated with Eleanor's crucial help quickly uncovered more layers. Hidden offshore accounts, a condo under a shell company, evidence suggesting he'd been siphoning funds long before Sarah, potentially defrauding his own business partners. The perjury charges were just the start. Serious financial fraud charges followed. He cut a desperate plea deal, avoiding a longer sentence by agreeing to disgorge the stolen assets, mine, Eleanor's, his partners. He lost everything: his freedom for a significant stretch, his reputation, his ill-gotten wealth. The asset recovery process was complex, but seeing the court orders forcing him to return what he stole was deeply satisfying. Justice. Working with Eleanor was unexpected. We met only once, in a quiet cafe. No tears, just a steely resolve. We exchanged documents, timelines, bank records. She was fierce, focused, and utterly done with Mark. Our alliance was purely transactional, ensuring he faced the full consequences and that every stolen penny was clawed back. He thought he was smarter than everyone, she said flatly, sliding a folder across the table. Proved him wrong. That shared purpose, the meticulous unraveling of his lies, felt like the final piece of legal revenge. The settlement funds recovered, combined with my larger share from the divorce, gave me a solid foundation. I bought a smaller place, untainted by the past. It's quiet, peaceful. The constant hum of suspicion and pain is gone. Do I feel triumphant? Sometimes, but mostly I feel relief, a deep, bone-weary relief. The meticulous evidence gathering, the courtroom battle, the relentless pursuit of the truth. It wasn't just about hurting them back, it was about reclaiming control, proving that the truth matters. That deception, no matter how carefully planned, has consequences. The system worked, painfully and slowly, but it worked. The biggest takeaway: you can survive the shattering betrayal. You can rebuild, and sometimes, the most satisfying justice isn't loud revenge. It's the silent, undeniable weight of the truth, finally crashing down on those who thought they'd escaped it. The silence in my new place. It feels clean. Finally mine.